Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to go over week 14. It's lying ahead. There's only 5 weeks to go in the season, and this week is going to play a big role. Some big divisional games, some big games to decide playoff seeding, and lots more. But before I get into the 13 games this week, just make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, and let's get right into it. We're going to start off with that key NFC North matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. This game will be played at Ford Field. For the Lions, it's a big game because it's another team that they can knock out of that one seed race and out of that division race, as well as they need to keep winning in order to stay ahead of teams like the Vikings and the Eagles. And for the Packers, it's to stay alive in this division race. With a win, it becomes a lot more hopeful for an NFC North title this year. Obviously, last year, these two teams suffered a similar matchup at the same time of year. Green Bay ended up beating Detroit after losing their first matchup, and we'll see if something similar happens here. Injuries on both sides of the ball, particularly on that Detroit defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how that Detroit defense does with all the injuries they're currently going through right now. But Green Bay is also going through some injuries. They're going to be without Romeo Doubs as well as Jair Alexander. So this is a big game. What's the keys to winning? For both teams, they need to use their running backs. Detroit, that Sonic and Knuckles running back duo is huge. And for Green Bay, it's about Josh Jacobs, who's been one of the main reasons they've been winning. And as well, it's going to be about defensive play. If Green Bay's defense can shut down a pretty high-powered Detroit offense, they're going to have a lot more better time against Detroit, and the same thing goes for Detroit against Green Bay. So it's going to be about which defense plays better, and I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers to win this game. I think that Green Bay right now is really catching their stride. They just had 2 dominant wins. And Detroit, even though they've won 10 in a row, I think injuries are finally going to catch up to them. So give me Green Bay to take down Detroit on Thursday night and stay alive in the division. There are some matchups I'm going to spend a lot less time on because they do not really matter. And this is true for this New York Jets versus Miami Dolphins game. Classic AFC East game with two teams that have not really caught their stride this season the way they should be. And in this one, the Jets are continuing to lose games, and they might be 1 or 2 losses away from an Aaron Rodgers benching for the rest of this season. And for Miami, it's really do or die this week. If they lose, their season is likely over. So who am I going to take in this one? The keys to winning for New York, it's just they need to be consistent on offense. If they provided anything in that second half against Seattle, they would have won. And Miami, it's about just getting that offensive performance as well. We see what can happen when the offense starts producing. That's why they won those couple of games in a row before their Thanksgiving loss. And I'm going to take Miami to win here, to stay alive, and potentially this could be a momentum-building win for Miami going into the last part of the season. Another game that I don't think really matters as much is New Orleans versus the Giants. Two teams that are pretty much out of it. New Orleans only still in it because of a tough division. And the Giants are going to be starting Drew Lock again. But this offense, other than Tyrone Tracy, has not provided pretty much anything in recent weeks. Meanwhile, New Orleans, it's a similar story. Expect this to be a low-scoring game. And I expect New Orleans to win just because New York really does not seem to be wanting to win. It seems like they're focused on tanking for the draft. So give me New Orleans in that one. Now let's get into some divisional matchups, beginning with Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. We know what happened in their first meeting. Cleveland stole a win on a snowy night in Cleveland, but this time the game's in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh had a huge win over Cincinnati last week. Cleveland also had a great offensive performance. So expect this to be a high offensive game, the way these two offenses are playing as of late. And I expect this to be a close one. But I think the thing that's going to matter here the most is that Pittsburgh is at home. Their fans are obviously stoked about their start to the season. And with a defense that I think could play a lot better than they did in their first matchup, with guys like TJ Watt getting to Jameis Winston, I think Pittsburgh takes this one. and moves to 10-3 and stays kind of alive for that 1 seed in the AFC. Now, a huge game between Seattle and Arizona. An Arizona win means this division is tied once again. A Seattle win means that Arizona is fighting for their lives in the next few weeks, and Seattle takes another huge step towards the playoffs. And in the first matchup, it was a defensive battle. Seattle's defense did not let really anything happen out of Kyler Murray in that offense. And it was the same for that Arizona defense, but a crucial pick six led to Seattle winning that game. And I think Arizona is better than what they showed in that first matchup. So I think Arizona is going to get their get back, and they're going to tie this division up at 7-6 with potentially another team that does have a hard game. We'll get to them in a bit, but I think Arizona wins this game and the division gets tied back up. Now let's get into two games that contest 4-8 teams and 5-7 teams, beginning with the Chicago Bears heading to Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers. And these are two teams that are spiraling in the wrong way. San Francisco's been blown out multiple weeks in a row and have just lost McCaffrey and Jordan Mason for pretty much the season. And the odds are beginning to be stacked against them in a game where they probably need to win out or go 4-1 in their final five to make the playoffs. Meanwhile, for Chicago, they're just coming off another devastating loss that adds to their losing streak of many. And they fired head coach Matt Eberflus following that loss. And Chicago, they're obviously looking towards next season at this point. But in this game, I think Chicago's offense being better than San Francisco's offense right now is going to play a big role in what these teams can do for the remaining stretch of the season. And I'm going to take Chicago in this one, mostly because San Francisco is so injured, and it just seems like San Francisco's lost complete control of their season. And I think Chicago is going to end their losing streak and go to 5-8, while San Francisco will wave the white towel on their season. Another game between two teams fighting for their lives for the remainder of the season. This one will happen on Monday Night Football between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas has now won a couple games in a row, and Cooper Rush is playing pretty well right now. Rico Dowdle just had a great game on Thanksgiving for Dallas, and they're getting solid play out of their defense and special teams. Cincinnati has the number one quarterback by passing yards, number one receiver by receiving yards, and the number one sack leader. And this team is 4-8. And it's obvious that this defense is not that great right now. And with a Dallas offense that seems to maybe be starting to pick it up, I think Dallas puts the final nail in the coffin for Cincinnati's season, because I don't think Cincinnati's defense is going to play a good game. They have not proven that they could the entire season, and therefore I'm going to go with Dallas to move to 6-7 and kind of hop back into that playoff picture, while Cincinnati falls to 4-9 and officially their season would be over. Next is a battle of two teams that their seasons have ended a couple weeks ago, and this is a AFC South matchup between Jacksonville and Tennessee. And unfortunately for Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence suffered a concussion in their last game, and I would guess that Mac Jones is going to be under center for this one. And for Tennessee, they just got blown out by Washington, so both of these teams not going in the right direction right now, and they haven't been for the entire season. But in this one, I'm going to take Tennessee, as I just think they're more prepared to win this game. And Jacksonville, without a quarterback, they likely are going to begin tanking for Travis Hunter at this point. So give me Tennessee to move to 4-9. And the next game, Atlanta against Minnesota. And this one is a lot more obvious than many would think. I think Minnesota is going to blow Atlanta out of the water. Atlanta has not been playing well the last couple of weeks, and Minnesota continues to win football games. And this one should come a lot easier for Minnesota. And give me Minnesota to move it to 11-2, and a combination of a couple things will clinch them a playoff spot. And I definitely think that can happen this week for them. considering the way this Vikings team has been playing. Another 10-2 team in action this upcoming week is Philadelphia hosting the Carolina Panthers. And many look at the records between these two teams and assume that Philadelphia is going to blow Carolina out, but that is just not the case. Carolina has been playing much better the last few weeks, and I would expect Carolina to put up a good fight, but I don't think that Carolina defense has anybody that can stop Saquon Barkley. He is on a different level right now, and I think that's going to carry into this game. I would put him over 100 yards at least, maybe over 150, and he'll score 1 or 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts will get a tush-push touchdown or 2. And in a high offensive game, I think Philadelphia takes it out, and they move to 11-2, and they could potentially clinch a playoff spot this week. Next up is Tampa Bay versus Vegas, and Vegas is coming off of what I called their best game of the season. Aiden O'Connell seems to be playing decently well, and Brock Bowers is having the best tight end rookie season we've ever seen. So don't count the Raiders out in this game, but Tampa Bay has finally figured it out, and I would put the quarterback play of Baker Mayfield over the quarterback play of Aiden O'Connell, and I would also take a Tampa Bay defense that forces turnovers the way they do against a Raiders defense that hasn't played very well for a majority of the season. And this would be a huge win for Tampa Bay, as with an Atlanta loss and a win by them, they would take a full game lead in the division and get back into the playoff picture for the first time since they went on that 4-game slide earlier on this season. So give me Tampa Bay to move to 7-6 and defeat the Raiders, who would move to 2-11. Another big game here, though, as Buffalo takes on the Rams, another 6-6 NFC team. The Rams are just sticking around in the playoff picture. They're a game back in the division, as Buffalo is on the charge towards the 1 seed, and this is their next obstacle to doing so. And Buffalo is on a different level right now. There is something about that team this season, whether it be the amazing play of Josh Allen, he's the current MVP leader by most people, or whether it be a defense that makes important stops and forces important turnovers. Buffalo's on a different level right now, and I don't think that changes against the LA Rams. The LA Rams do have a high-powered offense, but it's been inconsistent for many points of this season, and this week will be no different. Give me Buffalo and another blowout win for them. And the final game I'm going to get to talk about this week is the LA Chargers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs with a win would clinch the AFC West and continue to charge towards that 1 seed in the AFC, while the Chargers would like to stay alive in the division, and it begins with a win on Sunday night at Arrowhead. The way the Chargers have been playing has been stellar as of late. Their only loss in the last couple of games was in a close game where if a couple things go their way, they beat the Ravens, while the Chiefs are continuing to sneak by in games. And I think this might be the game where the Chiefs slip up. I think the Chargers right now are determined to make up for what happened a couple of years ago, that big choke they had. And it starts tonight by winning an important game and getting one step closer to the playoffs. And give me the LA Chargers in an upset on Sunday Night Football, which would be important for Bills fans, because if they beat the Rams and Kansas City loses, they would be the 1 seed. And that is going to do it for this week's video of previewing Week 14. This is going to be a really exciting week, and there's going to be a lot to talk about in this week's Power Rankings. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, comment if you disagree on any takes I had this video, as well as go follow the TikTok at Hunter Talk Sports. I'm going to be uploading clips from this channel on there, so just be aware of that, and I will see you guys for the Power Rankings next Tuesday.